her sadness. And for me, muffled moaning keeps standing out, so I think that that's some of what can be heard.
Elsewhere, Darren continues his own investigation of the homestead. He places electronic field equipment around the grounds to monitor possible activity throughout the night.
The piece of equipment that I actually tend to rely on most is a voice recorder. I certainly favour voice-activated recorders because it makes the task of reviewing any material that you've managed to gather that much easier at the end of the day.
Coming up next on The Believers, we journey to the heart of Junee Cemetery, and Darren reveals some of his most disturbing evidence of the paranormal.
I got quite a surprise when I got close to it to notice that it was recording as I was leaning over to pick it up, and when we hear it back, you'll be able to hear the two words for yourself.
It is unknown exactly how many deaths have occurred at Monte Cristo homestead. The most recent, however, was in 1961 under truly sinister circumstances. It would play out like something straight from a horror film. After watching Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho at the local cinema, a youth took a rifle up to the grounds of the homestead and shot dead the caretaker at the time. The boy showed no remorse for his actions, and no motive was ever established. Most of the people who lost their lives at Monte Cristo, including the Crawleys, are buried at nearby Junee Cemetery. It was here, during one of his previous visits, that Darren recovered some remarkable evidence of the other side.
The piece of equipment that I actually tend to rely on most is a voice recorder. I certainly favour voice-activated recorders because it makes the task of reviewing any material that you've managed to gather that much easier at the end of the day.
Using one of these voice recorders at the cemetery, Darren captured what he describes as one of his most conclusive recordings of EVP. EVP, or electronic voice phenomena, is believed to be the voices of the dead attempting to communicate with the living through the medium of electronic devices. Darren returns to the Crawleys' grave, the scene of the original recording, to recall his findings.
It was actually on this grave right here behind me, on this exact corner of the grave. I set up a little analog tape recorder. It was voice activated, and set it up there, walked about 15 metres over in that direction there, sat down, waited for a good 10 minutes or so, making sure the whole time that no one else came anywhere within earshot of this place right here. When I got up and walked back over to it, I got quite a surprise when I got close to it to notice that it was recording as I was leaning over to pick it up, and I looked around and there was slight movement in the trees up here. There was, but not really enough. I didn't think there was some sort of bird noises in the background. If that had been what triggered it, then it should have been recording for the whole time. It wasn't. What it actually recorded was just simply 2 words that I didn't find out until after I picked it up, obviously. And then, as I picked it up, I spoke the words into it, "It's just me," so that it would be clear that that was the end of the recording. When we hear it back, you'll be able to hear the 2 words for yourself.
What you are about to hear is the raw audio of Darren's recording.
As an EVP, it's distorted, but what it seems to be saying to me is, "Shoot me."
Here it is again, slowed down.
It's admittedly a very strange message to have on it, and after thinking about it, it seems possible that the original message may have been, "Don't shoot me," bearing in mind that on the analog deck in particular, there is approximately a second delay from when the actual first sound is detected to the recording actually starting on the tape.
It's me.
Coming up on The Believers, our paranormal investigators prepare to spend a night in Australia's most haunted house, and we encounter some of the most compelling evidence of ghostly communication to date.
It's absolutely bizarre. To me, it's unique.
I'm seeing male footsteps.
That whatever it is in the house trying to communicate with Kerry, and we're actually listening in on that initial attempt at communication.
Daylight slowly fades from Monte Cristo, and shadows begin to creep across one of the most haunted locations in the country. During her previous stay at the homestead, Kerry decided the upstairs drawing room would be the best place to conduct a seance. She enlisted a fellow investigator, as well as 2 members of the Ryan family, to aid her in the proceedings.
It's absolutely bizarre. To me, it's unique.
She says footsteps are part of the activity that people hear in this house.
What took place that night was not obvious at the time of recording. However, upon playback, the investigators would make a shocking discovery.
This seems to be a different phenomena entirely. What it seems to be is that whatever it is in the house trying to communicate with Kerry, and we're actually listening in on that initial attempt at communication.
As Kerry communicates with a spirit, the word foot is audible just prior to her response of sensing footsteps.
She says footsteps are part of the activity that people hear in this house. I'm seeing male footsteps.
The source of this sound is still not known, and its presence does not correspond with the acoustics of the room. Darren continues his analysis of the footage back in the studio. He remains baffled by the nature of the recording.
It could be some bizarre form of mediumship that we're not really aware of. I mean, Kerry certainly not only has no recollection of saying that word,
She also has no recollection of hearing it. That's not how she gets this information herself. She actually more sees it rather than hears it.
She says footsteps are part of the activity that people hear in this house. I'm seeing male footsteps.
Is it possible this could be one of the most definitive pieces of EVP ever documented?
I think this is possibly fairly significant from that point of view, that we're actually learning a little bit more about the EVP phenomena.
She says footsteps are part of the activity that people hear in this house.
As the sun passes below the horizon and Monte Cristo homestead descends into darkness, our paranormal investigators prepare another seance in the hope of contacting Mrs. Crawley. Kerry and Darren convene in the drawing room for the ritual. Joining them is Rita, a close friend of the Ryans. Before commencing the seance, Kerry mentioned to the crew that anyone present could effectively be drawn into the circle of communication. It would be this statement that would come back to haunt them.
If there's any spirit people here, please make yourselves known. Mrs. Crawley, I think you made yourself known earlier. If you're there, please make yourself known again.
John, our executive producer, has been feeling increasingly strange throughout the seance. Fighting the sensation at first, he finally decides to break his silence after experiencing difficulties with his chair.
I'm actually freaking out.
What happened?
It feels like the seat's collapsing. I'm not sure whether it's the seat's older and I'm just a big guy. But the seat has definitely sunk. And at a time where I've had this sudden urge, I haven't said anything for about 2 minutes, that I feel like I have to ask permission. It's me, he's the one who has to ask permission.
Could it have been Mrs. Crawley, once the domineering matriarch of Monte Cristo, spurring John to acknowledge her rule over the house?
I don't know why, I'm just overcome with tingles and...
Yeah. You're the boss, you're the one that has her story in control now.
I'm freaking out right now.
Coming up, the seance culminates in a nerve-wracking conclusion.
I feel like something about to come through the door.
People have gone away from here possessed.
So far, the paranormal investigations at Monte Cristo Homestead have delivered some uncanny results.
She says footsteps are part of the activity that people hear in this house.
All conclusions would indicate the spirits have been doing everything in their power to communicate with the team. With this in mind, Kerry and Darren have agreed to hold a seance in the Manor's drawing room to establish a link with the other side. Joining them is a longtime friend of the Ryan family, Rita Searle. Executive producer John Palmer feels compelled to speak up.
I feel like there's something about to come through the door.
A strange sensation has been gradually creeping over his body And now his chair is causing concern.
What happened?
So it feels like the seat's collapsing. I'm not sure whether it's the seat's older and I'm just a big guy.
Kerry warned all crew prior to the seance that any one of them could inadvertently be drawn into the circle of communication. It would seem that spirits do not understand the concept of behind the scenes.
I'm covered in goosebumps. But I just thought that's when I'm shitting myself, or?
Goosebumps usually indicate that you're on the mark, that you're right, that you're connecting in, feeling it. It's a good thing.
I'll say for about the last 5 minutes or so, I've felt the very, very beginnings of, I really don't know how to describe it, build-up of energy in the table, like...
Off camera, John's chair is again acting up. He does his best to retain his composure.
Is there any feelings associated with that?
Other than I'm just freaking out.
John relocates to another seat. The crew try to make light of the situation, but he is still visibly shaken. When the seance recommences, it is not long before events continue to unfold.
I feel as though something's pressing on my head, but I don't know if it's just through sitting here or if it's something else.
I feel like throwing up.
Sorry?
I feel like throwing up.
Do you?
The crew would later agree that the level of intensifying emotion in the room was almost palpable.
Like it's like this massive nervous energy build up, but it's not, I'm not nervous. It's hard to describe, I'm not nervous.
So it's stuck in like your solar plexus?
Right there.
Right there?
Yeah, right there, yeah.
Okay. That's when we make connections to spirit, a large part of it can happen in our solar plexus, and it can often make us feel sick. How are you going with your pressure? It's still there? Okay.
Feels like something's just pushing it down. It's actually quite painful. It's aching.
Okay, can you just take a minute for me? And just what I want you to do is send your awareness around you. And if I ask you, like, when you do that, does it feel male or female?
Absolutely female. I hate that I keep talking here, by the way. It's not Mrs. Crowley. And now I've said that, I feel like crying and I could... Hello.
So it's female. I can't help you if you don't talk to me.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah, so it's not Mrs. Crawley. The neck thing has got to have something to do with it.
It's really intense.
Do you think it's the baby?
Why do you keep looking at me to validate this?
Because you're the one that's making the connections.
And I'm getting tingles when you said that.
I'm thinking it's the baby. That you know, the baby's falling down the stairs, it would be a neck thing. A soft female energy.
I'm finding an embarrassment right now, and that's a personal thing with these feelings of like I want to cry. Bring up the baby each time. Every time somebody mentions the freaking baby, I like get shivers, like I want to cry.
Okay.
And I don't understand that.
In their attempt to communicate with Mrs. Crawley, the participants had connected with her baby daughter, Ethel, and the tragic circumstances surrounding her death.
And now that we're acknowledging the energy of the baby, they can make their presence known, how she passed away, Does that feeling on the back of your neck lessen a little, Rita?
Yeah.
It's alright to cry. That's the healing that's needed through the energies. Just think about you're doing this for them. It's not about you. Okay, now I'm going to ask Mrs. Crowley to come back in. I'm going to ask her to connect with her baby. Aside from emotional, how is that feeling?
It's overwhelming. It's great.
Gets to a point where it feels nice, huh?
Yeah, it does.
Feels
It really does.
like love.
With the seance drawing to a close, all of those present cannot help but feel in some way touched by the events of the night. That a place steeped in such tragedy and terror could produce the tender moment of a mother reconnected with her child was truly unexpected. There is no denying Monte